An ultimatum that sounds like the drumbeat of a new world war has been issued, and a capital city is already emptying out in fear. We have a member of the British elite caught literally in his underwear at the center of the world's most notorious blackmail ring. There is a bombshell claim that the nurse serving 15 life sentences for the most harrowing crimes of the century might actually be innocent. We'll look at a lottery winner who built a cartel instead of a castle and a pop star forced to sell her privacy just to survive the post-Brexit economy. But you have to stay with me because the story I've saved for the very end exposes a crisis so deep it's literally bankrupting our communities, and the solution might just be the most controversial move yet. Before we get into the thick of it, I have a favor to ask. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But more than that, I want to speak to you directly. We do a hard job here. We dig through the noise, we fact-check when everyone else is just copy-pasting, and we do it to keep you safe from the fake news that's flooding the zone. If you value this work, if you value the truth, please consider sponsoring the channel or using the Super Thanks feature. It's a personal way you can help us keep the lights on and the truth loud. And trust me, you are going to want to watch until the very last second of this video, because the most interesting and perhaps the most disturbing piece of the puzzle is waiting for you at the end. The world feels like it is holding its breath today, and for good reason. We are looking at a situation in the Persian Gulf that is moving past diplomacy and straight into the realm of kinetic action. Donald Trump has laid down a marker, a stark ultimatum to Tehran that leaves zero room for negotiation. It is simple, binary, and terrifying. Either sign a nuclear deal or face a military strike of such magnitude that the word destruction doesn't quite cover it. We aren't just talking about rhetoric here. The American Armada, led by the USS Abraham Lincoln, is already cutting through the waves, heading straight for the region. The language being used, promising a mission executed with speed and overwhelming force, has triggered absolute panic on the ground. Reports are coming in that people are fleeing Tehran, packing what they can, and getting out of the city. It makes you pause and wonder what the intelligence agencies know that we don't. When you see a population moving, that is not politics. That is survival instinct kicking in. And while eyes are fixed on the Middle East, the ripple effects are washing up on British shores in a way that should make everyone sit up and take notice. The UK government, quietly and urgently, has raised the age limit for reservists. It used to be 55. Now they are calling up people until they are 65. Think about that for a second. They are looking at retirees, people who should be tending their gardens, and telling them to be ready to put on a uniform. You don't make a move like that unless you are bracing for a global conflict that requires total mobilization. It is a sign that the timeline for peace is shrinking and the preparations for something far darker are already underway. But if you think the threat is only coming from overseas, wait until you hear what has been uncovered about the people who are supposed to be leading us. We have always known that power corrupts, but sometimes the images are so visceral they leave you feeling physically sick. New files have surfaced regarding Jeffrey Epstein, and they drag one of the biggest names in British politics right into the mud. We are talking about Lord Mandelson, a man who has held the highest offices, a former cabinet minister, a diplomat. Photographs have been published showing him in nothing but his underwear, relaxing in Epstein's Paris apartment. It is a humiliating, degrading image for a statesman, but the implications are far worse than just embarrassment. The accusation now is that Epstein wasn't just running a ring of abuse, he was running an intelligence operation. He was collecting compromat, compromising material on the Western elite, using honey traps to bind them to him. It forces us to ask a terrifying question. How many decisions made by our leaders over the last 2 decades were made freely, and how many were made because someone, somewhere, held a photograph like that in a safe? It suggests a rot at the very core of our establishment. And while we are staring at the past sins of our leaders, the present isn't looking much cleaner. We have a current independent MP, Dan Norris, back in custody. The allegations are stomach-turning, involving the filming of women without their consent and serious violent acts. Yet he refuses to resign. The arrogance of power is on full display here. It is a refusal to accept accountability that seems to be the defining trait of our era. But just when you think you have the moral high ground figured out, a story comes along that turns the entire justice system on its head. There is perhaps no case in recent memory that has horrified the nation more than that of Lucy Letby. She is serving 15 life sentences for the systematic taking of young lives, a verdict that seemed to close the book on a nightmare. But now a former police officer has come forward with a claim that has blown the doors off the tabloids. He is publicly stating that she is innocent. Completely innocent. He calls it the greatest miscarriage of justice of the century. This isn't some internet conspiracy theorist. This is someone from inside the system looking at the evidence and saying it doesn't add up. It is a headline that stops you in your tracks. If there is even a fraction of a chance that the system got this wrong, that we locked away a nurse for crimes she didn't commit while the real cause of those tragic losses goes unexplained, then the foundations of our trust in the courts are going to crack. Meanwhile, tragedy struck in a very immediate way in Greater Manchester today. A small aircraft went down near a lake in Littleborough. The emergency services are swarming the area, and it is a grim scene. There are reports of 2 souls on board, and heartbreakingly, images show an open parachute at the crash site. It is a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly a normal day can turn into a disaster. We don't have all the details yet, but it's another layer of sorrow on an already heavy news day. And speaking of things falling apart, wait until you hear about the man who won everything, only to use it to destroy his own community. You would think that winning the lottery is the golden ticket, the escape hatch from all your problems. But for one 80-year-old British man, it was just the startup capital for a criminal enterprise. Back in 2010, he won over £2 million. Most people would buy a villa in Spain and relax. Instead, he used that fortune to build a massive drug empire. He turned his luck into a curse for his neighborhood, flooding the streets with narcotics. Now, at an age when he should be with his grandchildren, he is trading his mansion for a prison cell. It is a bizarre, twisted story of greed that knows no age limit. It shows that money doesn't change who you are, it just amplifies it. And then we have the flip side of the economic coin. Kate Nash, a pop star you probably know, a voice of a generation, is reduced to selling intimate photos on OnlyFans just to pay for her tour. She went to Parliament to tell them that the music industry has collapsed. Between the red tape of Brexit and the soaring costs of being on the road, it is impossible to make a living making art anymore. Think about the contrast here. A criminal uses millions to poison a community, while a talented artist has to commodify her own body just to keep performing. It tells you everything you need to know about the state of our economy. It is broken. The incentives are all wrong. But if you think the economy is tough for the famous, just wait until you see what it's doing to the taxpayers in Kent. I want to take a moment here to remind you, if you're finding value in this analysis, if you want to help us keep connecting these dots, please subscribe and leave a comment. Your engagement actually helps us fight the algorithm. Now let's get back to it. The county of Kent is financially bleeding out. The local council is running on fumes, and the reason is a specific heartbreaking crisis. The number of unaccompanied migrant children arriving there has tripled in a single year. The local authorities are overwhelmed. They are saying it costs £1,100 a week to care for just one of these teenagers. They are shouting at London for help, saying the funding is unfair, that the burden is crushing the local budget. This isn't just about money, it is about a system that is completely saturated. And while the politicians argue over budgets, the reality on the ground is grim. In a court in Orrick, we are seeing the dark side of this chaotic migration management. 2 Afghan nationals are on trial for an attack on a 12-year-old girl. The defense? One of them claims he thought she was 23. It is a defense that makes your blood boil, especially when you hear that the victim was pleading for them to stop. It highlights a clash of cultures and a failure of integration that we are not allowed to talk about without being shouted down. And in the middle of this social fracturing, Keir Starmer is trying to hit the reset button on Europe. He is setting up meetings with the EU every 2 weeks, talking about food standards and youth mobility. The opposition is screaming that this is a betrayal, a slow-motion reversal of Brexit. But the question is he fixing a broken relationship, or is he ignoring the will of the people who voted to leave? But I promised I'd save something interesting for the end, and this one actually offers a glimmer of hope in a dark week. Amidst the wars and the scandals, the British public has done something remarkable. They have saved the rude giant, the Cherne Abbas giant, that ancient chalk figure carved into the Dorset hillside, famous for his, shall we say, prominent anatomy, was at risk. But thousands of people pitched in, raising millions of pounds to buy the land and hand it over to the National Trust. This summer, they are going to re-chalk him with 17 tons of fresh material. It is a small thing, maybe, but it shows that people still care about their history, about the quirky, unique symbols of this land. So where does that leave us? We have a world teetering on the edge of nuclear conflict, a political class compromised by blackmail, a justice system under a cloud of doubt, and an economy where criminals thrive while artists struggle. It is a lot to process, but it also shows us that the official narrative is rarely the whole truth. That is why we are here, to watch, to analyze, and to prepare. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, support the channel if you can, and stay vigilant. The world is moving fast, and we will be here to track every turn.